Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Peace and Plenty in 20. I'm your host, Janine Deramo, transformational coach for midlife women, helping you trade perfection for peace with structure that actually fits your life and not somebody else's rules. Last time, my episode that was part one of the conversation I had with Coach Dea, the incredible Coach Dea, I had so many of you reach out to me saying, I needed to hear that. I connected with that so deeply. We talked about releasing that idea of having to be superwoman, right? Learning how to function in the chaos, which was a great message of hers, and how to give yourself permission to be imperfect, which is something I talk about all the time. So today in part two, you're going to get to hear more of this conversation. And let me tell you, it goes even deeper. Coach Dea shares her journey of being adopted at a very, very tiny young age to overcoming trauma, her resilience, and also the way her faith and her purpose and her boundaries, which I call perimeters, can reshape your life. If you've ever felt like you're walking around carrying a heavy backpack of old stories, or you're tired of living for everyone else while questioning if you're doing the right thing, if you're enough, this episode is for you. You'll hear wisdom that's going to touch actually on all five of my pillars, which is why I connected so closely with Coach Dea when I first met her, because even though our coaching work is a little bit different, the fundamentals are very much the same. So you're going to hear things like permission to lay that backpack down. You're going to hear her talk about priorities that align with the season of life that you're in now. You're going to hear us talk about productivity and how that can just look like one small intentional choice at a time. We'll talk about perimeters, those boundaries that will create peace, not pressure. And that final pillar of mine, your true power and purpose, and how they come from living in alignment with who you really are. So let's dive into part two of my conversation with Coach Dea. And I want you to walk away from this today looking at it as an invitation to stop beating yourself up, to embrace the beauty in imperfection, and to remember that you are already whole and enough exactly as you are today. I hope that women can see that it's okay to wear those different hats, and giving ourselves the permission and to know that it's okay to have different parts of yourself. What are some different parts of yourself that like maybe not everyone gets to see, that shows others, oh, you know what? I don't have to be just one thing. And I can release those expectations and surrender to my true calling, to my truth, to my authentic self. Share a little bit of your experience around that.
It's funny. I hardly ever think about it, but one day my daughter was pointing out, my oldest daughter. So I'm a mom of five, right? Ages 16 to 37.
Amazing.
I am also a grandmother of a little boy who's 8 years old. And that was always front and center as my life as a mom, which was not easy. As I mentioned earlier, I was divorced. I am divorced twice. And the coaching life for me began on actually self-discovery. I wanted to know, gee, what did I do wrong, or what did I do or didn't do? What was my role in my pain? That was my main question. And this is how I got into the journey of becoming a coach, because once I learned what worked for me, I thought, wow, or what didn't work. I said, maybe other people need to know this, right? So I became very committed to talking to women, and then I started working with couples. Then I started speaking publicly. All of that came with this curiosity about myself. The desire to heal, the desire to know more, the desire to do better. But prior to that, I don't know if you know, but I hold a presidential award for I worked with philanthropy all my life. I was always doing charity.
Did
And
not know
because
that.
of it, I got involved with an organization called Humanity Healing International, and was invited to manufacture and create feminine cloth pads for a community, a school community in Uganda, Africa, called Future Victory School, where some of the girls were going through puberty and they didn't have, feminine products for themselves. So I created a cloth, like a usable, washable cloth pad that were, designed to help them during their time of the month. Otherwise, these girls would sit by the river. And the organization that I was working with at the time had access to building a well. So they had access to water, so they could wash these pads. So after working on this project for a couple of years, because I worked with charity and was part of an organization, uh, they nominated me in the White House, and I received for the number of community service hours that I did creating the feminine cloth pads. I was nominated, and I won a presidential award for that. Some years prior, and this is all because I knew how to sew, and I tell you the story about the sewing in a second, which is really interesting. Some years prior, I had won, a couple of years before that, I won the Huggies Mom Inspired Award, which was the biggest grant given to small startup companies, and it was a mom baby product. Being that I had so many kids, I was always looking for solutions to help me in bathing the baby, taking care of the baby, and I created a product as well who won a $15,000 grant at the time with Huggies. Everybody know Kimberly Clark, but the company is Huggies. That was back in 2010. So I was always creative. I played music. I played guitar, piano. My kids are all musicians. I sang and played in a rock and roll band for 11 years, something local. I was a dancer all my life. I moved to the United States from Brazil at age almost 20 with a scholarship with the Joffrey Ballet as well as with Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater.
Wow.
I performed in a modern dance company for 10 years. I went into teaching ESL, English as a second language, through a dance program. Now, my first language is Portuguese. I speak 3 languages fluently. This is all from being here. I've been in the United States for 40-something years now. I've just turned 60, so maybe 41 years total. And it's been, I'm sure there are other things I did that I can think of right now. I've done a lot of things. I wore a lot of hats, but that's because I think overall I've been a very open person. I've always been in the moment. If somebody says, hey, do you want to try this? Yeah, sure. There's never been a rigid plan for my life. I think I go with where, the Huggies Award, for example, I was during a very hard time of my life. I had created this product. I'm looking through AOL. There was this national competition. I'm like, enter it. What do you got to
Why
lose? You're not
not?
going to. I was like, I'm not going to win $15,000 because they asked how much money do you want for your startup. So it was 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Go for the 15,000. You probably won't get it, but hey, what if you do? That was always my approach to everything in life. I never ever enter anything thinking of the outcome, but I think of the experience. The beauty of it is that I don't think of the accolades in the same way people think of them. I always think that that was my preparation. These were the steps that were placed before me. I also often don't share, but I lost my parents at a very young age. So I was adopted at the age of 5 months, right?
Wow.
Um, with my twin sister. I have a fraternal twin sister. And I had a beautiful life, but my life didn't start that way. I lived in a hospital for a month before I was able to go home, malnourished, with parasites and all kinds of diseases, and literally what you see on TV, children with scabs and bugs on their face. That's who I was. And so our lives were saved by a woman who has had unconditional love, and she adopted us. And wouldn't you know that the story about the pregnancy that made into a book, my daughter Juliana, who is now 19 years old, that pregnancy was an abnormal pregnancy, supposedly, according to the amniocentesis. But what happened was, I remember them telling me, if she makes it through this pregnancy, which they thought she would make past 28 weeks of gestation, they said she could have a functional life, but she'll never be able to conceive. And when they said that, I remember that I was adopted and saved because my mother was not able to conceive. And so I understood that I'd gone full circle with why I was gifted that life opportunity. My sister and I were adopted under very grave conditions. And I remember my mom telling us the lady who owned the orphanage was a dear friend, and she said, if you don't come today, these little girls are going to die.
Ugh.
And so because my mom had had a hysterectomy a few years prior and couldn't conceive, she adopted us. And all I needed to hear was, if your daughter lives, at the very least, she won't be able to conceive. And it was almost like a movie. I went back and saw myself, and I thought, okay, I need to save my daughter's life, because maybe someday she will save the life of babies like my life was saved. My mother couldn't conceive. And in the end, my daughter actually turned out to be perfect. It was either, I don't know, a God recall or a miracle in medicine, but her genetic composition was perfect. And she is a perfect, beautiful, I mean, hey, I prayed for a perfect baby every day, and I didn't come close to whom she is today. So
Oh.
I think that this was the gift that, that in some weird way that brought me back to God and my faith, which fell out of it sometimes during my journey of faith. And that was the moment, that was the place that I said, okay, I see you, God, I see you.
Mm.
So it's been a very, I have a great life. I have a great life.
But Dea, what I love about you sharing all this is people that have had struggles or challenges like you've had in your life, which you have just mentioned so many from the time you were born throughout your life, it would be very easy for you to become a victim of all of those circumstances. It would be very easy for you to say, look at the hand I was dealt, and kind of just say, this is why I can't, or this is why I don't have, or this is why. And you have chosen to do the exact opposite. You have chosen to say, no, no, I am here for a reason. I am lucky and blessed to be here. You give back. Your perspective shapes not only your own children, but your clients and the community. And the fact that you are serving so many and modeling that resilience, and how you can always, it's one of my favorite lines, and I didn't create it, but you are always at choice, and you are making choices every day with that idea of, I'm also going to surrender what I can't control, and I'm going to prepare what I can prepare, and I'm going to just do as well as I can, and at the end of the day just rest my head and be okay with resting. And to me, that is the signature of a peaceful and plentiful life. In closing, I would love for you to just share, if you were to picture midlife women that you normally work with and speak with, and you could leave them with one thought today, especially this is going to be airing in September as a lot of moms are sending their kids back to school, whether it's off to college or whether they're in grade school. September comes with just a lot of stress, right? Schedules are changing, a lot of those unknowns, who's going to get called, even who's going to get called out to go, pick up from school, maybe something, I have to care to my child, maybe something at work happens, something in the house. What message can you share with them if they're in this moment right now of like, I am just like breaking under the pressure. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to be a mom. What would be kind of your final words to help them navigate that experience?
Okay, so I wanted to just real quick touch, because as you know, I'm a trauma healing specialist, right? So one of the things that I'll say and I want to remind everyone that all of us, myself included, come with a box of trauma in the background, right? I call it the backpack that we put on every day. And a lot of the times when I work with people that are struggling with everyday things, whether they're moms or they're struggling at work, I would say to them, you need to put the backpack down. And a lot of people think that the reasons, I mean, don't be surprised, the way we interact with others in the world today, subconsciously, we are operating from that of which our brain has been taught to do. Right? It's almost like subconscious. We put on the backpack in the morning, we go out to the world, and even when we're trying our best, some of those things are going to play in the background and mold the way we interact with others. So in these moments of life when we are struggling just to do the everyday, whether you're a mother and you're running around trying to do everything for the kids and not for yourself, you forget who you are in the middle. I always tell my clients, put the backpack down. And many of them are reluctant to do so because they say, doesn't that mean that if I do that, then I'm allowing what happened in the past to be what it was, and I am not fighting for my rights or taking a stand for who I am? And I said, no, it's actually the opposite. Here's the reason. I illustrated with you. Most people, let's say this is not a backpack, but let's say most people do this every day. They walk out with all their pain, their problems in here, all the struggles, everything that happened to them. And that, see, this is why I'm not good enough. This is why it'll never be good enough. They become victims of their own predicament because they have this on here. And I said, we're removing this, not because it didn't happen, but because it did. It's another way to look at it. Put it down. Put it down. Take it down and be open to receive in a different way. that all of us can't walk and live our lives focused on what happened to us. We have to decide what's happening in here and make that choice. Like you said at the beginning, we all have a choice. Give yourself grace. You know, grace isn't an excuse. Grace is just a place of comfort where you say surrender to that pain. Hey, if you're having a bad day, then I did this for many years. If I dropped my kids off at school, there was a time when they were little and they were close together, the three younger ones, right? Because I had two older ones that are now adults, but the three younger ones who are now 16, 19, and 24 were close together and they were little. I dropped them off at school. If I was struggling with whatever that day, I made popcorn and went and watched a movie. So what the dishes weren't done? So what the house was dirty? Don't don't be so hard on yourself. You know, life, you're going to get to be my age one day. I was doing this in my 30s, my 40s. When I got to be 60, after almost losing my life, I woke up from that experience and I said, why do we beat on ourselves so hard? My twin sister said something so wise one day. She says, Dea, you don't need enemies. You just look in the mirror every day and you beat yourself up to the ground. Stop doing that. So my advice to you is stop beating yourself up. Stop looking in the mirror and putting yourself down. You know, start by saying good things about yourself. Hey, I deserve all good things. You know, we can't lie about our narrative, right? The narrative shouldn't be a lie. The narrative shouldn't be, oh, I'm great, when you're not. But you can say, hey, I'm not feeling so great today, but I know that I will. I know that I can. I saw something so profound and beautiful the other day that said, looking at what we have doesn't diminish what we don't have. But if we just focus on what we have, what happens is you would love on the things that you don't. There will be an acceptance that, yeah, you may not be here just yet, but you can, and you will if you want to. We have that choice to declare and decree victory over every single area of our lives. But it comes with a consciousness. It comes with embracing, surrendering to the fact that we're humans. And we're going to stumble. We're going to disappoint. And we're going to be disappointed. But you know what? Every single time something happens and you're disappointed, it's a revelation. It's something that you didn't know that now you do. And what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with it? You have a choice. So be kind to yourself, you know. Being resourced sometimes is that. Be kind to yourself. Because when you're kind to yourself, you'll be kinder to others. That's the difference between helping and serving. Is knowing in here that if you're happy, whole, and healthy, yet imperfect. Imperfection doesn't mean that you're broken. Imperfection means you're teachable. Imperfection means that you can learn, that you can grow. It can be a better person. That's a perspective right there. Perceiving yourself as imperfect, as broken, and not whole. No, I am whole. I am whole. I'm happy and I'm healthy. I'm imperfect. That's okay. I still can learn. I still can grow. You just open up a whole different place for yourself. And when you're struggling, think how many other women out there are struggling in the same way by hiding behind this image that you think you have to sell. You don't. You just need to be real.
So much wisdom that I feel like women should listen to everything you just said over and over and over on repeat every morning, because you're right. We beat ourselves up. We don't give ourselves grace. When things go wrong, I love that aspect of let's learn. It's a teachable moment. And if you didn't like the way it went, choose differently next time. And if you don't have control over it, then you just do what you can do in that day, in that moment. I want to thank you so very much for taking this time to be with us. The perspectives and the wisdom, and I think the adjustment that women can make in how they look at both themselves and their days and their circumstances has been so profound. So again, Dea, thank you for taking this time to talk with me and to share with so many women what I know is going to be a very inspirational episode.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Always. I'll be anytime you want to talk about any subject, I am here.
I love it. And I will also put in the show notes Dea's information, website, contact information, so you know where to find her, Instagram, because I'm sure you're going to want to hear some more of her goodness and her brilliance. So thank you again. And to all my listeners, I will see you same place, same time next week. And until then, make it a peaceful and plentiful day. Bye.
Bye.